Joining us now to discuss his singular life and times, civil rights activist, the Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. And Reverend, I'm joined by Dr. Todd Boyd, and we thank you for your time. I want to ask you, who is it that you have lost in Muhammad Ali?
You know, a personal friend of nearly 50 years, but more than that, a huge moment in history, a huge force for peace and justice in the world. There are three dimensions of Ali I think are very important. One is that arguably the best heavyweight of all time in the category of Julius and Jack Johnson. He mastered his art. He was a great fighter. Without that platform, other things he did may not have mattered as much. He used the platform and he didn't need a PR team, by the way. He was his self-promoter. But he projected the heavyweight championship, reflected upon the background that scarred him. It scarred Louisville. He came back to Louisville with a gold medal and could not buy a hamburger downtown. They treated the horses better than the children because they cherished the horses and marginalized the children. His parents had to pay taxes and could not vote. Black soldiers sat behind Nazis on military bases and were humiliated, but he did not internalize his pain. He projected it outward and sought to bring walls down. He brought those walls down. And then but what made him, I think, a hero was that he was willing to risk his career and his reputation and put dignity over dollars. That was a big, big deal beyond the ring.
And Reverend, you, I know, have said earlier this week, and it really did strike me, speaking in terms of that platform that you just mentioned, that he was a light and that shone into very dark places.
Well, you think about Louisville left him in the margins and underestimated what he had to offer to the world. Louisville gave up on him. He never gave up on Louisville. In many ways, America gave up on him. He never gave up on America. I mean, they sought to discredit him and destroy him by taking away his belt. You can have the belt, but not the crown. I am the king. And I think a guy that deserves lots of credit. He was in exile for 3 years and banished in many ways by many segments of the public. A black guy named Leroy Johnson, the first African-American legislator in the South since Reconstruction from Atlanta, Georgia, was able to work a deal out with Mayor Marcel of Atlanta and the governor, and he was the bridge to get Ali from exile back in the ring. Leroy Johnson, Dr. King's classmate, I might add, who's still alive. And they would not even allow Ali to do his workouts in the gyms. He worked in the Morehouse Gymnasium in Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. So a lot of little pieces that are coming together now that show just how he used the odds and dreams to make him the force he is today.
Reverend, I do just want to ask you, just to hold on for a moment as we are now seeing pictures of the body of Muhammad Ali being lifted by the pallbearers into the hearse that will bear Louisville's favorite son through the neighborhoods of his youth on the way to the procession. We'll listen for just a moment.
All right, gentlemen, if you would move to your cars, please. Thank you.
Well, among those we were just seeing there, again, the pallbearers, they included Mike Tyson, whose career was clearly informed and inspired by Muhammad Ali himself. Also Will Smith, who played Muhammad Ali in the eponymous film. Lennox Lewis as well, another voluble former heavyweight champion himself, as they again bore the body of Muhammad Ali.
What a journey.
And what a journey. We're also joined by the Reverend Jesse Jackson, again, as well as Dr. Todd Boyd with us, Reverend. And I know, Dr. Boyd, you had a question.
Well, I think, one of the things Reverend Jackson mentioned, he said dignity over dollars. When you think about Ali at the height of his career as a boxer, Ernie Terrell, Cleveland Williams, Zora Foley. These are the fights right before he's sent into exile. If you imagine a contemporary athlete now in the midst of his career, with as much money as they make, taking a stand that would not only cost them money, but might also cost them their career. How does this help us put Ali and his decisions into context?
Well, I'll tell you, many of them right now, they're so committed to being commercial ready to sell candy or cars or something. Even with money, they're rich in their spirit, though they're rich in their money and poor in their spirit. You think about the drinking water, poison water in Flint. How many athletes in Michigan who are pros of making big millions stood with the people of Flint drinking dirty water, for example? How many in the South making millions of dollars will not fight for affordable health care for poor people? I mean, these are issues that impact far beyond a given ball field or ring. And Ali took on public policy issues that made him make him a social transformer beyond just being one of the greatest boxers of all time.
And Reverend, it's hard to believe now, the young Cassius Clay, not the best of students. However, he did always bear that so potent weapon, a verbal jab to match any he threw in the ring. And it was a voice that he lent to his causes, albeit as the product of the Jim Crow South. What was it like then for?
Well, he was a good student at what was important to him. You know, you think about Bill Gates. He didn't finish college. He was good at what he focused on. Harold Truman didn't go to college. He was good at what he focused on, politics. Ali was good with what was important to him. He was a master of the skill of boxing. He connected cognitive and motor skills together and had a vision of a new South, a South with dignity, where we could all play by one set of rules. You know, what makes the game so interesting of athletics, frankly, is that whenever the playing field is even and the rules are public and the goals are clear and the referees are fair and the score is transparent, we can accept the outcome. He fought for an even playing field. He fought to be not only free but to be equal. And that fight was controversial to those who want to maintain the status quo. He leveraged his strength to make all of us. But I see people here today who really were against him in the early days, now on his side of history. I mean, he was always on the right side of history.
And you mentioned the complicated relationship that he had with his hometown. Obviously, the pictures and the outpouring of emotion and remembrance suggest that relationship has now come full circle. Reverend, what is it like to be in Louisville, Kentucky today?
Well, certainly, you know, if one goes to the Galt House and the restaurants, the hotels, the motels, the parks, the libraries open, the unfinished business, however, there's still ghettos here. Blacks still have less access to capital and industry and technology and social media. There's work to be done, but he has set the pace. Here's how an athlete who has wealth should behave with wealth and stature, like David was for Goliath, or Samson was for Philistines, or even, I might add, Sandy Koufax, who refused to pitch an opening baseball game on the World Series because of religious convictions.
Yep.
Right.
I think one of the closest athletes to that today may be LeBron James. But whatever one thinks about the ball game and all that tonight, LeBron James has put on his shoulders the children of Akron, built a recreation center, provided free scholarships, stood up on Trayvon Martin wearing his hoodie, as Eric Garner being killed, I can't breathe. Athletes must use the stature and their blessings to see the world through a door, not just through a keyhole.
Reverend Jackson, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, as someone yourself who's very close to the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King, this is also in the 60s, the same era of Malcolm X. How do you place Ali, who was a boxer, in the context of people like Dr. King and Malcolm X from that particular era?
Well, both had an acute sense of racial justice. They had that in common. But Ali ultimately had the largest, freest platform. Julian Bond won his seat for the Senate in Georgia, and they would not seat him, fighting against the war. And finally, that battle was won. Dr. King, and he took a position against Vietnam War. He was roundly attacked, and Dr. King was fighting that war. Now for Muhammad Ali in a ring where it transcends the political arrangement. Democrats, Republicans, rich and poor like boxing. And they got to take that platform with its commercial value and choose principles over the commerce. Choose the dignity over the dollars. That's what puts him into another zone. And then sacrifice over greed. And while you could find joy in his laughter and his rhyming and his rhythm, his reasoning was greater than his rhyming. That sense of, I remember he and Dr. King went in that room together that day in New York. He was telling Dr. King, let's go all the way. Dr. King said, and Dr. King gave up his life a year later to the day. Ali gave up his career, not knowing he would fight again. And the black guy in Atlanta, Georgia, I should never forget, named Leroy Johnson. Leroy went into the legislature in 1962, the first black in the South since Reconstruction. He found after they tried 60 cities to get Ali a place to fight, they wouldn't accept him. There was no boxing law prohibited in Atlanta. Leroy Johnson, who's still alive, Dr. King's classmate, were able to work out a deal with Mayor Marcel and the governor of Georgia and get Ali back in the ring. That the bridge from exile to the ring was a black guy named Leroy Johnson who fought for the right to vote and stood with Julian Bond. I think he deserves special tribute because if he had to wait until the Supreme Court ruled 2 years later, he might not have been able to get back. But Leroy Johnson's a big factor in this development.
As we now see the cars, the procession leaving the funeral home as the body of Muhammad Ali makes its way through the neighborhoods of his youth. Reverend Jesse Jackson, your insights make us better today. We very much appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.